Hello and welcome to Scratch to Gigs. My name is Max Rainwater, and today we're going to learn how to push down buttons on the fingerboard that make things fun and easy to do. All right, so sorry for the shifty eyes. I got my camera set up over there. I got my outline right there. And so hopefully we can move fast because time is of the essence here at the studio. And maybe in the background you will see why. All right. To get your fingers down in the right place at the right time on the fingerboard, we want a really automatic process, something that's easy and fun to study so that we want to keep on doing it and get better and better at it. And that's the idea behind the Gumdrop buttons. So Gumdrop buttons, nice and squishy and soft to push down and really easy to find them because they're very salient and maybe even light up in our memory of like, hey, push me, I'm right here. Okay, and so as we assign notes on the fingerboard, we're going to be building a map, but there's also patterns and generalities that we can start to notice. And that is the roadmap of buttons in our brain for intonation. So for example, we're going to pick a friendly key today of D major. Friendly key means that it starts on one of our open strings. So here's my fiddle uke, which is tuned like a fiddle or a mandolin, so you can maybe notice some shapes that will become familiar. So where we're going to start is to learn a major scale. We're going to move quickly through that. We're going to develop the idea of broken thirds, so your brain can hear some of these patterns that are not just straight up and then straight back down, but might have a little bit of a different structure to them. From there, we're going to look at a tune, Amazing Grace, one of my favorites, and we're going to diagnose what is its range scale. Range scale means we start from the very bottom note of the song and we go all the way to the top note of the song, but we skip any notes that don't belong in there. We're going to discover that that is called a pentatonic scale, and the melody, in fact, is strictly pentatonic. The little trick is that it starts on a note that's other than the root. So I got about 10 minutes tops here, and we're already 2 minutes in, so off we go. We talked about the concept of buttons being fun and easy, so let's talk about being able to hear a major scale. Now, this video is going to assume that you can match a pitch, la, di, and then you can sing a major scale, which would be do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, solfege, or you can also assign scale degrees, and in fact, that's what we're going to do throughout most of this video, is to number these pitches. Tricky thing is that although it's an open string, we're going to call it scale degree number 1. 1 means root. So 1, 2, 3. Now right there is the idea where we get the third. If we start with 1, we call that the unison. If we were playing 2 of the same notes at the same time, that would be unison, 1 sound. Now the next scale toned is going to be a major second or a whole step. Now that is where the buttons theory really starts to get legs, is the idea that if I move up one note, these notes are next to each other. The idea of notes being next to each other is going to be able to start you down the path of hearing melodies. Okay, those notes were next to each other. Those notes over there, they jumped farther apart. But as we stack these whole steps, and we will learn that sometimes a whole step doesn't sound right, we wind up with a major scale. So let's do that. Did I skip anything here? You got to know your scale. So here we go. Do, re, mi, fa. That didn't sound right, so it's not always a whole step. What would that be? Can't remember. Fi, fi, fo, fum, something like that. There are notes for there are solfege pitch syllables for the notes in between. But I had never learned them. Fa, mi, fa. There's a half step in between scale degree 3 and scale degree 4. 5, 6, 7 root, sol, la, ti, do. Now, let's play it again. Descending order. think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a friendly key. It starts on an open string, and the fiddle is tuned in perfect fifths. That means we can get a repeating pattern of fingers on adjacent strings. In the buttons theory, when you're in a major key, you're going to look for the pattern of fingers on adjacent strings. So here we go. We got open button, 1 button, 2 button, low 3 button, open button, high 1 button, high 2 button, low 3 button. Hallelujah. Okay, we have the same exact pattern on 2 strings. So in our buttons land, those fingers are going to the same place. And it's easy and it's fun to feel that button squishing down in the same place on 2 different strings. Then you can do stuff like tune against a drone. So there I go, tuning my 1 button against the adjacent open string. Easy for me to say, right? So this has got frets, and that's one of these tricks that I use to help me understand the finger patterns of a song. Notice how I'm not playing the real violin. That's mechanically advanced. You've got to hold it in posture. You've got to sustain the tone with the bow, and you got to get the note in tune. So let's just look at one element of that. That's going to be one of the core ideas behind scratch to gigs fiddling as a whole, is you want to be able to diagnose a musical excerpt and understand its components. So all melodies move up and down. We're starting to figure out how to have an automatic system or roadmap for cluing into what key are we in and what would the finger patterns look like in that key. So here we are at identical finger patterns on adjacent strings. We're about halfway through. I got to pick up the pace because we only got 3 minutes left. So one pattern goes straight up and straight back down. That's a major scale, diatonic major scale. You can also play broken thirds. So we talked about the interval of a third. You skip a note. So you're going to skip a note in the scale and then go back and hit it. Skip a note, then go back and hit it. It's going to make a different pattern. I kind of think of it as like a little sawtooth. Goes up, comes back down. It sounds like this. Oop, metronome, y'all. Tee, tee, tee. Ah, we can play a little faster. Dum, 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 pum. I'm singing with it, trying to hear the pitches. I can say the number of the finger, 1, 3, 0, 2, 3, 1, 2, 0. Okay, that is one of the patterns that I often prescribe to students who are ear training. It's not as easy as hearing notes right next to each other. You have to be able to skip and then come back. And that's a structure in your mind, obviously, without frets becomes a little more dicier. So as you hit a note, tum, really try to hear the other pitch, tum, tum, at the same time. And that will start the feeling of like, ooh, I was close. I didn't nail it that time. But you get that idea of like, oop, finger came in too low, finger came in too high. You'll start to hear intervals. And lo and behold, over time, you're going to be able to hear a finer and finer grain. As you practice with a metronome, the added bonus is that the physical movement of your fingers becomes acclimated to a rhythmic idea. So you're going to have the idea of put it down for 2, pick it up for 2, put it down for 2, change for 2. That was gobbledygook, but let's keep moving. Range scale. Next idea here. I only got 1 minute. Might have to go on to 14 minutes here because the kids are being good. So stay with me. Range scale. You start a tune and off it goes. It has low notes and high notes. But if you take the notes out of order, you can start from the very lowest note of the song and move to the highest. And that is called the range scale. The other thing you do with a range scale is to take out any pitches that are not in the song. So I'm going to sing Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Okay. Maybe we ought to. How can I? I'm just going to tell you what it is because I want to build this thing step by step. Amazing Grace is a pentatonic scale. Now, a pentatonic scale plays these pitches. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. You love using that? We got the whole gang in here. We're going to press pause on this, come back to part 2.